Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, welcome, welcome. You have found us here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. It is Tuesday, it is 4 p.m. ET, and as always, we are here to bring you a fabulous new author with a fabulous new book, and today it is Peggy Townsend's The Beautiful and the Wild, and we are going to wish her happy pub day in just about 10 seconds. Before that, I am Hank Phillippi Ryan, your host, the USA Today bestselling author of 15 novels of suspense. My current book, as you know, is The House Guest, which is so cleverly displayed on the door behind me. My brand new book coming out in February is One Wrong Word, which I'm learning how to make a book face out of. I can kind of do that. It is sort of Scandal meets Suits, and we will hear more about that as the time comes. But today, as I was saying, we are welcoming from California, Peggy Townsend, whose new book, The Beautiful and the Wild, is out today. You all, this is a book about survival and motherhood and secrets. It's cinematic and gorgeous and surprising and unbelievably suspenseful and so cinematic, and it's actually haunting. I was telling Peggy before the show started that when I finish this, it's the kind of book that you finish and you sort of put it down and think, oh, wow, it's just touching and thought-provoking and life-changing. So I highly recommend The Beautiful and the Wild by Peggy Townsend. I'm not the only one who recommends it, of course. Let me read you what Anna Reyes says. A pulse-pounding novel of captivity, survival, and deceit, The Beautiful and the Wild kept me guessing about Liv Russo's mysterious past as well as her precarious future. I needed to know how her story ended, even as I didn't want it to end. And what did you think when you read that, Peggy? That is such a wonderful description of this novel.
Well, first, can I say thank you for having me here, and also tell you I love The House Guest. That had me at the edge of my seats too. So
you can tell me that as much as you want. That is,
I really did. It's one of those ones where you didn't get the laundry done or the dishes done, because I think I'll just read for a little while longer. So anyway,
thank you. That's so kind of you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So so it means a lot to me for you to have me on and to say those kind words, and to have Anna say what I wanted that book to be was so exciting. I mean, like, she got it. Like, I wanted it to be haunting and riveting and like a more of a quiet thriller, but one that grabbed you and that carried you along. I've been a newspaper journalist for a long time, and that's one of the things I learned in journalism is you have to carry the reader along, because there's so many reasons for the reader to stop. So I try to employ that in my fiction writing as well.
Well, tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, you were both journalists, and we both know about storytelling. How did your journalism help you understand the shape of a story, or the momentum of a story, or the propulsion of a story, and what to leave out?
Well, that's very important. And I was just going to say that one of the things that journalism really taught me was how to find the heart of the story, to find the kernel of the story, and how to fashion everything around that kernel in the book. So it was really important for me when the idea came and I started researching, to think, what is this book about? And so that, plus, like I said, journalism teaches you how to move along, to pick the details that matter, not the details that you love, because you think they're so pretty, or I wrote that so well, but to write so that every fact counts. I was at the Poynter Institute once, and they had a little exam thing that we did, a little project where we wrote a news story, and then we had to turn the news story into a 9-line poem. And what that did was really teach me the value of each word and what to leave out and what to put in.
In the small world department, I went to the Poynter Institute too. I've never met anyone randomly who also went. So that's amazing. It's a wonderful investigative reporter seminar week place. But I do think that poem exercise is brilliant, because what we also learn in journalism, if you care about it, and what you do so gorgeously in The Beautiful and the Wild, is there's a story, and then there's what the story means, and then there's why we care. And all those things have to be involved.
Yeah, I agree. I think you have to care about the people, and you have to care about the characters. You have to care about the theme. It has to touch a person. And so, the theme in this book for me was about secrets. And I
Oh, I'm
think,
going to stop you right there. I'm going to stop you right there because I want to delve into this absolutely so. And I need to do a little bit of housekeeping before that. Robin Stull is saying she met you somewhere. If you'll put that back up, Margaret, in the back room, what Robin said about where she met Peggy in 1988. Can that possibly be? Did I read that right? I met Peggy during her reporter days at our son's Make-A-Wish shopping spree at Bill's Wheels in 1998.
well, hello. That's wonderful. Yeah, I remember that.
She says of you, such a kind person is her memory of you. What about that?
That's wonderful. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, what a memory. And welcome, Robin. This is such a small world. And Robin is a big fan of Crime Time, and it's so fun to bring you back together after all these years. If you are new to A Mighty Blaze, let me just quickly tell you, sorry to interrupt you, Peggy. If you are new to A Mighty Blaze, like Robin isn't, we are so pleased to have you here today. A Mighty Blaze was started a little more than 3 years ago by Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt, the powerhouse duo, to keep us all together talking about books and talking about reading and keeping our community vibrant and learning about new authors and discovering new books and chatting about reading and writing and all things literary. And that is why we are here today. Today, we are so honored to have Peggy Townsend, who is the author of The Beautiful and the Wild, which is out absolutely today. Happy Pub Day. Let me quickly tell you about Peggy Townsend. She is an award-winning journalist who has panhandled with street kids, taken to the skies with para-rescuers, and once chased an escaped murderer through a graveyard at midnight. It is not fictional. This is true. Her first mystery, See Her Run, was listed as one of 13 thrillers to keep you up at night by Kirkus Reviews. Her second book, The Thin Edge, arrived May 14th, 2019, and was called an outstanding novel by the Associated Press. All right, you listening to this now? She has rafted rivers, come face to face with grizzly bears in Alaska, and has twice lived in a van for 7 weeks, which makes her seem more adventurous than she actually is, she says. She divides her time between the Central California coast and the Sierra Nevada mountains. That is quite the bio, Peggy.
Well, thank you. I always call myself a mini adventurer. There's people that do these amazing things, and I'm like the little person, like, oh, I'll raft a river here. That'll be fun. And I'll go fishing in Alaska.
No, but this is a tough thing. River rafting is very treacherous. And just as what happens in The Beautiful and the Wild, one little thing going wrong can change your life. Let's quickly talk about Pub Day, though. What is it that never gets old? What are you doing special today?
I'm so excited. Well, after our interview, I'm going to have a glass of champagne and with my husband, and then I'm going to go to our local bookshop, Santa Cruz, and I'm going to have a reading there. It's the bookshop's 57th birthday, so I feel very honored. Pub Day and their birthday. So that's how I'm going to celebrate.
And Bookshop Santa Cruz, if you're interested in a signed book, as Margaret in the back room is putting up now, there is the link, and it has Peggy's book, and she will be there tonight to sign one for you. So all you have to do is click, 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 and you can get it. Of course, one of you will not have to do that. One of you will win a copy of The Beautiful and the Wild by just leaving a question or a comment in the chat, and we will draw from the Wheel of Fun at the end of the show. So Peggy, not quickly, but take as long as you like to tell us a little bit about the story of The Beautiful and the Wild, and then we'll talk a little bit about what it means and why we care.
Okay, that sounds great. And I think it is important to say what the book's about, because unless you're a speed reader and got it this morning, not many people have read it. Right. It's the first day out. So the main character, Liv Russo, she works as a house cleaner. She's a mom, and she's mourning the death of her husband when she gets a cryptic text that seems to suggest that her husband is not dead, but is actually alive and living in Alaska. and her life is kind of falling apart. And she really has nothing left to lose. So she decides to take her young son, Xander, who's developmentally delayed, up to see if she can find him. And she does find him out in the wilderness of Alaska, only to discover that he has a secret life, another family. And she's trapped in this like a compound, a little cabin, grow their own food, fish, hunt, because her husband doesn't want her to leave. He wants her to stay and join in this lifestyle that he has. But she realizes how terrible it is, how bad it is for her and for her son. And so she's trying to escape, and winter's coming, starvation is setting in, everything is against her, and she has to figure out a way to get out of there with her son. So
here's this lovely woman, Liv Russo, who we love instantly, who has a past that you unspool. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, who brings her son to find the husband she thought was dead. And she finds herself trapped, held captive, essentially, in the wilderness of Alaska. It is. And how is she going to get away? And she can't just escape because she needs to take her son wherever she goes. So it's not just her future at stake, but it's her son's future. And we love her for that. This is not, we've all read books about, captive wives and killers and bad husbands and domestic violence and that kind of thing. But this book is not that at all. This book is incredibly different. It's incredibly cinematic. It's emotional and thought-provoking, and the dialogue is fantastic. Talk a little bit about, and it's raw. Nancy says, sounds like a fascinating read. It absolutely is. Talk about where the idea came from a little bit.
Well, the first inkling of the idea, I was stacking firewood at our cabin and listening to podcasts, and there was a story of a man named Billy Sipple, who was an ex-Marine, and he thwarted the assassination of President Ford in San Francisco. And he was gay, but he was closeted from his whole family and his parents, and he was outed by the media, and his life was destroyed. And he ended up dying, as I understand, dying as an alcoholic, just bitter about everything. And I thought, what if you did something wonderful and it exposed your deepest secrets? And, as a journalist, I'm around secrets a lot. And I started to think about secrets and what kind of damage they can do to us, and how a secret can change our whole lives. And that's for Liv. She has a secret that goes way back, and it's changed her whole life. The way she looks at herself, the way she thinks about herself, the way she sees the world, the decisions she makes. Secrets are so harmful to people, and that's at the heart of the book. Along with this idea, and if you can let me be a little long here, I don't know.
Oh, we love it.
But there's also love at the heart of the book. So that came from an experience when I was in Alaska, and it was about 10 o'clock at night on a summer night, and we were hiking to go fishing in a river, and we came around the bend. It was my son, he was in his 20s, and my husband and a couple other people, and we came around the bend, and there's two grizzly bears right there, maybe 25 feet away. My heart stopped for a minute. And my son, who I had spent my life taking care of, protecting, steps around. He had a gun, and he said, "Everyone just back up slowly and I will take care of it." And so the first time he was protecting me. So I had this thought about love and survival, how those two are intertwined, that you survive if you have love. And love is a part of survival. Without love, survival is hard. So those were the two themes that I had running through the book, which is, why it's not a serial killer running through the woods book. It's more emotional, I guess I would say.
Well, it's the power of love, as you say, the beautiful and the wild, the power of love and the power of secrets. And Renee is saying, so scary walking into grizzly bears. Yes.
Yes.
How big is that? We'll get to your book in a second. How big is a grizzly bear were they?
Well, these ones looked huge, but I mean, they can get up, I think, like 800, 900 pounds. And they're just, the way they look, they're just powerful. They're all muscle and bone, and they just are, yeah, they're just powerful. That's how I can describe it.
Beautiful, beautiful and wild.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes,
And that is such an interesting combination because where Liv goes with Xander is beautiful, but it's also wild. And the power of love is used as a weapon also
right.
when she goes to find the person, her husband, that who she thought was dead. How did this story then evolve to you? Did you make a big outline and figure it all out? Did Liv's story develop as you wrote it? Did you have an idea of what would happen in the end? How did your writer brain, with your journalist brain, figure out the shape or goal of the story?
That's a great question. I'm an outliner. That probably comes from my journalism. So I outlined a lot and I started writing. But as I wrote, I went through and I wrote a really bad first draft, terrible, horrible. And then so I had to revise it. But as you revise the revising project, your characters start to come more alive. And so Liv became such a part of me. I had to remind myself I really didn't know her. She wasn't somebody that I knew. So as she developed, I began to feel her depth. And so after like the third revision, I think it was, I really felt her. And so I was able to write, and I kept my outline, but I pretty much veered away from it at that point because she had changed so much in my mind. So she became, somebody that led the story. And also Xander, the way she loved her son, that became really important to me. And the idea that her husband used love as a weapon, that also made Mark develop. I didn't want you to hate him, but I wanted you not to trust him or like him.
We understand him while we're not trusting him,
Right.
at least. I mean, because Liv, one of the things that's so gorgeous about this story, we're talking about The Beautiful and the Wild, out today from Peggy Townsend. The thing about Liv, and I love that you named her Liv, is that she becomes empowered through the story, from her own sense of survival and her own sense of love. And she is a different person at the end of the book than she is at the beginning of the book. I was really had tears in my eyes at the end for her and for her realizations. And I know we're not going to tell the end, but what did you feel at the end of this book?
I felt the same way. I'm not a crier, being a journalist, I'm kind of pretty hard heart when it comes to that. But I was so moved by what happened, what came out of my brain. And like I said, I don't want to spoil the ending, but it really emotionally affected me, and
yes, and we'll just leave it at that. I agree. I wanted to bring it up because sometimes these kinds of, when you think about a wilderness survival story, we have expectations, and this defies any expectation of what a wilderness survival story is. So again, please take a look at this novel because it is life-changing. It's about secrets as well, as I think you were saying. And one of the difficulties for an author who knows that her book is about secrets and revealing secrets is that you can't do it too fast because all the secrets are revealed, and you can't do it too slowly because then the reader is annoyed. They're saying, why don't you just tell me what the secret is? How do you deal with that pacing throughout? And did you know all of Liv's secrets?
I knew the main secret, yes. The other secrets sort of came to me. I think Michelle Richmond, who is an author that I love, described it as a slow burn literary thriller, which is exactly what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to bring you along, but I didn't want to rush. So that's how the then and now construction came.
About that.
To keep you in the action, but then also build the backstory instead of like dumping it on you all at once. I wanted to slowly build it so you began to understand Liv the same way that I did, and to be able to feel how she felt about being betrayed by someone. Honestly, when she went to find him, she still loved him. She wanted him back, and to feel that betrayal, to the emotions, of
Yes.
thinking someone's dead, finding they're alive, and then discovering what's going on.
We were talking about The Beautiful and the Wild by Peggy Townsend, and we were just talking briefly about how it's divided. It goes back and forth between now and then, as you can see the chapter heading. And the thing that's so brilliant that you do with the thens is, instead of feeling like, as you said, backstory that you're just filling in the blanks for the readers, the then becomes now. You're in the now of then. You are who Liv was back then. You're living the life in the way that she lived it, not retelling a story, but being in that time, which makes it feel very alive and very present. And we go through the surprises and the things that Liv learns with her, and her disappointments and her joys with her. What was it like to be the younger Liv versus the older Liv? And how was that to write?
The younger Liv was actually a little bit easier for me, because I kind of knew what I wanted what her secret was going to be. And I also, put her on a ranch in Texas, and I used to raise cattle as a 4-H'er a long time ago. So I understood that lifestyle a little bit. But, for me, I think her problem, the reason I'm pausing is I don't want to give away what the secret.
She had a hard scrabble upbringing.
Yes.
With contentious parents.
Correct. And her memory, as all memories do, changes over time. And after a while, she began to wonder what is the real memory and what's not. And I think, having covered trials a lot when I was a reporter, and they brought in all memory experts, and they talked about how fluid memory is, how malleable it is, how it can be, manipulated. So when I wrote her as that person who was in a situation where she wasn't quite sure what was happening. I guess that's the way to say it. So, so I loved her backstory. I really, I guess the easiest part was writing her backstory for me, those scenes back then.
Yes. And you there's so many, the rhythm of the story is so gorgeous, because she has so many highs when her husband is successful and so many wonderful things are happening, and then so many lows when the rug just gets pulled out from something else, and then so many highs when something else wonderful happens, and then so many lows. And then when she finally finds him, and it's no spoiler that she finds him, then there's this harrowing, excruciatingly, I mean, you say slow burn, but I think that just means like, this is as sinister as it could possibly be at every second of every moment, and we are with her in her captivity. You paint that picture so gorgeously. How did you know what it would feel like to be so constrained and not really knowing whether you ever were going to get out? Talk a little bit about writing that part.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Jane Smiley said once in an interview that a writer takes a small event and then blows it up like 100 times. And she talked about losing her kid in a department store for like 10 minutes and then finding him, and to do a story about someone losing a child, and she just blew that up. Well, for me, the similar thing was our little cabin in the woods. It's hard to get to. We used to have to hike about a quarter mile to get to it. I had to chop firewood. The power would go out, the pipes would freeze, snow would come, you'd be stuck. So I took that feeling of being trapped and just blew it up like 100 times. And yeah, so that's sort of how I constructed that idea. I just took what I kind of knew about feeling trapped and how you deal with that adversity, that feeling of being alone and kind of helpless, not helpless, but powerless against a bigger force than you, and just blew it up from there.
And you also, in this captivity, we generally think of someone who is being held captive as being tortured and terrible, and they're harmed. But she's sort of love bombed in this captivity, and she has to learn how to deal with it and see if she can use it and negotiate it to get away. And I think that was genius of you. Talk a little bit about, if you can, a little bit about that situation, and where the New Age-ness comes in, and the sort of false belief in another kind of society, and how you tell it.
Okay. Let me think about that one too. I don't want to give too much away, but okay, let me think how that. So right about this time, it's weird how things happen. A friend of mine mentioned that their husband wanted an open marriage, and I was thinking, well, I cannot do that. And right about the same time, I started reading this stuff about people that had polyamorous relationships, and I met two women who were in a relationship like that, and they were smart, beautiful, amazing women, but they had this idea of how they create this utopia, this utopian relationship, right? And they were so loving toward each other and so considerate toward each other. I was just blown away by how they could do that. But at the same time, I felt like there was human frailty underneath it all, like the idea, a little bit of, jealousy. Like, how do you give up something that some person that you want to be with, and knowing they're with someone else? So it was that, to me, and then I did a bunch of reading. To me, it was that interesting idea of someone acting like they love you, but yet you're in conflict with them. Like, so it was a sisterhood, but not a sisterhood, so that idea, the kind of Mean Girls phenomenon, that all came into play.
And you do it beautifully. I mean, it is chilling. And we all know people who have tried to convince us that if we do that they're doing what they want to do, which is completely unconventional and probably destructive, and that the reason that we don't see how wonderful it actually is that we're not open to it as much as they are.
Right.
And and the wonderful Liv says, well, if you, by open to it, do you mean that you want that my son should have food and shelter and health insurance? If that's capitalism, they'll bring it on. Okay. And she's practical, and she's loving, and she's protecting her son, while she's getting, while people are trying to convince her just to let it all go and it will be fine. And she's smart, and she's tough, and she's practical, and she wants to get herself and her son out of there. But you set up this very difficult situation throughout. Was it fun to write this book? It's such an adventure. It's such a survival adventure, and it's absolutely a page turner. Can you tell us a little bit about writing it and how you felt as you were setting up these wonderful episodes?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I did have fun. It's also hard work. Journalism is very different than fiction writing. But I did have fun. And like I said, in the revision process, things became so clear that, and this is the exciting part of being a writer, at some point it becomes like a movie, and you're just watching it, and you're writing what you're seeing and what's happening, the dialogue, to somebody that's not a writer, that sounds like strange, like maybe you have a real problem. You're imagining people, imaginary friends, but it's that way. And when that happens, that's really fun. And when you create something that you think will have meaning to someone and maybe will touch somebody's life, that's fun too. Telling a story that will mean something to someone. So when you say you were haunted by it and you thought about it afterwards, that to me is like the highest praise that I could get. I appreciate that so much.
Well, my pleasure, and very heartfelt. My heart was pounding when she was looking for ways to get out of the container. And the spider webs and the dust and the springs and the toothbrush and all those kinds of things. It's such a marvelous book club book, because Liv is so relatable. Her love for her son is so relatable. Her heartbreak is so relatable. Her survival is so relatable. And we all would think, what would we do? Did you think about that? What would you do, and what would someone actually do, and what will your readers decide what they would have done?
I definitely did that. I like to have in my books, I want to have a foundation for the decisions that a person makes. But I also don't want the decisions to be too pat so that
Mhm.
you could think yourself, well, what would I do? Like, would I go after my husband if he suddenly I get this weird text that means maybe he's alive? Would I do that? I love those kinds of quandaries, and I like to put them in the book too. I think there is a lot to discuss there as a book club book. How much do you know your spouse? Much do you know your partner, the person you love? You may think you do, but that you may not. I mean, people have their secrets that they don't. I did some research on secrets, and they say the average person has 13 secrets, 5 of which they've never told anybody. And they can be, minor, like lying, cheating on an exam in school or something, or they can be big, like having an affair. And I think a book club could talk about what do secrets mean to you? How have secrets affected your life? How do they affect others in your life?
And also,
So
what will happen if you, Renee is saying only 13. Renee has had a very exciting life. And also, is it better to tell it? Is it better to tell a secret? Or is it ever better just to keep the secret? And Liv finds that out.
She does. And the research I've done, the people that have done research into secrets say some secrets you should keep to yourself because they'll just hurt people. But they say that secrets they're not hard because you have to figure out how to lie to people about your secrets, but they're hard because you think about them all the time. They pop up before you go to sleep at night, or when you see a movie and your secret pops into your head and you feel shamed. So what the recommendation is that you find someone that you can trust, someone non-judgmental. And even if you tell a secret to one person, you can let it go more easily. That's what I learned about secrets when I was doing research.
Lessons learned from the beautiful and the wild. I hope I have conveyed to you all what a marvelous, suspenseful, excruciatingly suspenseful adventure this is. A terrific story with a surprising and haunting ending. I highly, highly recommend this novel. Karen Dion on the cover says, a gripping, edge of your seat Alaskan wilderness survival story, and so much more. She says, I love this book. And I agree with that. And so much more. The Beautiful and the Wild by Peggy Townsend. And I see that we have so many questions in the chat for you. Let's see some of those questions. Vicky, hey, Vicky, says, what was the most challenging aspect of switching from journalism to fiction?
Well, that's an excellent question. I thought it was going to be a lot easier, frankly, because I've been a journalist for a long time. But I think the thing about journalism is you do all the research, you've got your facts, you feel very confident in what you're writing. And with fiction, it's from your heart. So you're laying yourself more bare than you normally would as a journalist. And so I had to get used to that. And I had to get used to making stuff up. It's like, yeah, it just that was kind of it was kind of foreign to me to make something. Oh, I can make this person do this if I want.
Isn't that a revelation? Because, as a journalist, when someone says something, that's what they say. And if you think, oh, gee, you could have said that better, but they didn't say it better. They said it like this, and that's what you have. But when you're writing dialogue, and your dialogue is so brilliant in this, when you're writing dialogue, you can make it be what you want it to be. And that's very powerful, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. Yeah. And it got easier. But like you said, when you're doing a story with someone, you might ask a question, you think, oh, they're going to love this. And you say, well, did you love this? And they're like, no, I hated it. And you're like, what? So I can have a lot of control when I'm doing fiction. So.
Yeah. As much as control as anyone could ever have writing something.
Right.
As you said, sometimes the story just takes off if we're lucky and we're transcribing the movie, and that is devoutly to be wished. Katie says, hey, Katie says, what author do you admire and why?
Oh my, there's so many authors I admire, like Karen Dion. I love her books. I love Hank's books. There's so many right now, but one that I just read that I'll have to say that I just fell in love with is William Kent Kruger's The River We Remember. In fact, I actually have it here. Can we see it? Oh,
yes, it's perfect. There you go.
Yeah. Anyway, oh my gosh, talk about a beautiful writer, and talk about a story that tugged your heart, and talk about a story that brought up such important topics, but so gently that, it wasn't, you weren't hit over the head by it, but
Yes,
you
and
just
I think you two have a lot in common. You and Kent Kruger have a lot in common because you're all about love, and you're all about memory, and all about history and secrets, and also the setting, this gorgeous outdoor setting and nature, and where we are in the universe, and to whom do we owe our history and allegiance. This is what you write about. This is what you write about as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, he's an amazing person.
Renee is saying we all thank you for the cheering squad. I love this, you all. You're great. Who else has a question? Oh, Sylvia, hey. What is one fact about Alaska that you didn't know before research that surprised you? Great one. Hard one.
Yeah, that is a hard one.
Had you been there a million times?
No, I just spent the 7 weeks in my van there. Okay. Here's a one fun fact. I thought bear bells worked. So we were in this town called Haines, which is a little small town in Alaska, and we were going to go hiking, and we met this young man who was a great guy. He was really fun. And we said, oh, we're going to go hiking. He said, well, there's a lot of bears where you're going. And I said, oh, I have my bear bell. And he says, well, in Alaska, we call those dinner bells because just with bears. And I did research afterwards, and sure enough, bears don't know what bells are. They know cracking twigs. They know, somebody yelling, that stuff. They don't know what a bell means nothing to them. So he tried to give us a gun to take.
That's my favorite quote of the afternoon. I must say, I thought bear bells work. That's your next first line for your next.
That is a good way to start you're right. That's a good way to start a thriller.
Something was going to happen right after that. I think we have time for one more question, don't we? Deborah says, another hard question. What are you currently reading? Well, you showed us William Kent Kruger.
Yes. Let's see. I just downloaded and started Vanessa Lilly's book, Blood Sisters.
Yes.
So I'm reading that and really enjoying that and learning a lot. There's so much history there and so much story there. So I'm
a Cherokee archaeologist, Vanessa Lilly's book, Blood Sisters, is absolutely great. Mighty Blaze said, yes, we just had Vanessa for Blood Sisters. We talked to her a couple of weeks ago. So that is marvelous. So Peggy, congratulations. I want to get you to your champagne. You're absolutely well-deserved champagne for this gorgeous, suspenseful and heartbreaking book, The Beautiful and the Wild. And let me just show you, if you can see this cover, which is the mountains and the face together. What did you think when you saw this cover?
I was in love the minute I saw that cover. It gave me chills. Yeah. It's one of the most beautiful book covers I think I've ever seen. And it's just stunning with the woman's profile and the mountains. And I just thought it was amazing.
Yes, it's amazing. Love this. Congratulations on a marvelous book. Let's spin the wheel of fun and see who's going to get their very own copy of this book. And we will look at this. This is so exciting. And here we go. The draw. Look at all the people who are here. Hey, Randy. And the winner is Lynn Huntman. That's so great. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for coming. Lynn is such a stalwart viewer of Crime Time. It is always marvelous, Lynn. And I'm glad that you are so lucky. You have won The Beautiful and the Wild by Peggy Townsend. So you know the scoop. You email me and you'll get that email. You email me. I'll email the executive producer. The executive producer will email Peggy's publicist. Peggy's publicist will email Peggy, and Peggy will write, sign your book and send it to the publicist, and the publicist will send you the book. That is how it all works. So you will get your copy soon, Lynn, of The Beautiful and the Wild. And I know you will absolutely love it. The rest of you, you know what to do. Celebrate Pub Date with Peggy Townsend. Run, run, run. Click, click, click. Get your copy of The Beautiful and the Wild. You will absolutely, and then clear your calendar and call Hollywood, because this is a marvelous book. Peggy, thank you. Happy Pub Day.
Well, thank you, and thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation we had, and thank you to all the people that were listening and readers. We authors were nothing without readers, so I really appreciate you all. So, and I appreciate you, Hank. Thank you so much for
Thank
your support.
My pleasure. Well said about the readers. Randy says, my copy just arrived today. Randy, that is great. We love having you here.
Wonderful.
And we love having you all here. Let me quickly give you the administrative scoop. Next week, we're off because I will be in the UK attending a documentary film festival. There's a documentary called Neither Confirm Nor Deny that I have a role in that is on Amazon and Apple TV right now, but it is being premiered in the UK next week, and I'm going to participate in the panel discussion at the premiere, and so that is very exciting. So we will be off next week. After that, when we come back, thank you, Deborah. When we come back, we will have authors like Tess Gerritsen and The Spy Coast and Nalini Singh. There should have been 8. And if I should tempt you with those and many, many, many more authors as Crime Time continues through this year and into the next. Until then, thank you all very much for coming. We love seeing you here. And until I see you again, remember, it is always safe inside a book. And we'll see you next.